Can you hear me? Nods, nods and waves. Awesome. Hi, welcome to TechGirlz HTML and CSS workshop. I'm your teacher, and as you probably can tell, you're joining us at Hogwarts today. I'm a proud Gryffindor, and I'm not just using Hogwarts because I've always been waiting for my letter to come, but because code is kind of magical, and I can't wait to show you a little bit about what HTML and CSS are and how they work and how they can be used to build amazing things. As we go through this, I'll talk a little bit about, and remove that. We'll talk through what those are and how they work. So yes, I'm your teacher today, but you'll see some other adults and other adult photos here. And the adults are here to help you get through and guide you as you have questions. So even though I'm the main teacher today, there's a lot of adults here to help support you. Obviously, your parents are around probably too, but we'll make sure to make it as easy as possible. I know being remote's kind of new for a lot of us. So yeah, ask for help if you need it in the chat, and we'll talk a little bit about how you can do that. About me, I am a product designer. And so what that essentially means is that I'm designing things and making them easier for people to use. So like, for example, if you ever wonder if you want to raise your hand if you use Snapchat, you use Snapchat still? Yeah? With Snapchat, for example, they have someone like me to design like the yellow, to design what you're selecting, design those little cute dog ears. I think that's Snapchat, not Instagram, right? That is someone like me. And so how I got here is something kind of like how you've all been, or excuse me, let me put this in a better way. How I've got here is I started coding at the age of 12. So a lot of your ages right now, or a little bit younger, a little bit older than some of you. And I didn't actually know I was coding at the time. I just realized it later. But the tools that we'll learn today are going to be the same ones I learned at your age. And so what's super rad about that is you guys are all digital natives, and you have an advantage in that you already know how computers work. A lot of us older folks, we didn't get raised with computers and iPads and iPhones. So you're going to actually find that this is probably much easier than you might think it is. When I was 14, I started using Photoshop. I'm sure some of you have heard of that or have used it already, but about your age as well. I have two cats. They're named Felix and Onyx. They're here on the right side. One is black and the other is gray. They may jump on my lap when this happens. I'll hold them up and say hello. And then I like drawing, yoga, and video games. Right now I'm playing Animal Crossing, the new one that just came out for the Switch, if you like video games, and if you heard of it. Awesome. So I know that a lot of you are probably are getting pretty familiar with remote and sort of the rules and guidelines that fall within using remote tools. But we want to make sure that you all, if you haven't, that we emphasize some of the best practices today for being respectful to yourself, or excuse me, respectful to each other, your teachers, and your parents. So if you have questions on the right side or at the bottom of your screen, you should be able to turn on the chat option. And so what you should be able to do is select from there's a little icon that looks like a chat, and you select that and it should open on the right or the left, or depending on if you've used Zoom before, it should open up. And so what we'd love you all to do is, if you have questions while we go through this, put them in the chat for everyone to share and to read through. And with that in mind, make sure that you're using the chat respectfully. Look, there's Amy. She just posted up there with a little smiley face. Just remember that it's not public, but everyone in the group can see this. So I like to use a rule called, would this be something I'd share with my grandma? And if I wouldn't share that with my grandma, I would not put it in the chat. So so just kind of use that rule as you use these types of tools. Be respectful, be nice. Don't obviously, like, you don't have to be, you can share a cute cat pic, or, you know, ask questions, or, you know, say, I like this, or, you know, curious about this. Always totally fine there. You're still people. Even remotely, we're all just people. Obviously, be respectful with the adults in the room who are here to help you, or the adults here who are here to help you. Oh, look, hello, everyone. Seeing your hellos, this makes me happy. Seeing the adults who are here to help you, just be sure to be respectful to them as well. I have no doubts that you're all going to be amazing and kind and great human beings. But we always want to emphasize these things. Oh, hello, 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 highs. I'm so excited to see them. So just be nice, you know, not too crazy on rules there. And remember, we're not being graded today. So this is all about having fun. And I know that in the world of being remote, it's not quite the same as being in a group in person. But I hope that you still have fun today. We're going to do our best. I'm so excited to show you all some of the great things you can do with HTML and CSS. There are amazing and beautiful things that you can build yourself super easily, super quickly. Let's see, before I forget. Oh, and before I forget, if you are using, oh, hi. Hi, Charlotte. Lim, awesome, great to meet you. If you are using your parents' computer, definitely feel free to go in and change your name, because we might call you by your parents' name. So if you, on the top left-hand side, there should be a ... and you can select that and hit rename, and then include your personal name there. Thumbs up indeed. And include your personal name there, so I'm not calling you by your parents' name. I don't want to be called Tina, I'm Anna. So I hear you. Awesome. Well, with that being said, and all of these hellos, let's go ahead and get started. Oh, we walked through Zoom already. I'm ahead of myself. Awesome. So a couple of quick facts for you all. You're all, like I said, you're digital natives, and the amazing thing about your generation is that you all were born and raised with these tools, with the web, with the internet, with, well, that's synonymous, but with the web and iPhones and iPads, and you are already 10 steps ahead where I was at your age. It's amazing, and I know you're not quite used to it yet, but back in my day, I had a Barbie computer, and it was huge. It was a giant computer. So it's an awesome time to be here. And honestly, the cool thing about that is we're more rare. The digital natives and the people who have access to internet are actually more rare than you might think. So 1 in 4 people in the world have internet access. So if I were to count off 4 people, say, look to your, you know, virtually, look to your left, look to your right, and then look over one person, one of you, if you were part of a global community, would not have access, 3 of you would not have access to the internet. And it's kind of wild to think about that, because I don't know about you all, but I'm using my computer and the internet every single day. And so we have this amazing privilege, especially now in light of, I don't know if you've heard of it, but in light of the coronavirus, we get to have the opportunity to still connect with each other. And we get to be, everything is still accessible to us, at least in terms of what we have on the internet. So that's amazing to me that we get to have that privilege. 70%, excuse me, my goodness. 76% of world users are in North America, which means that like a huge amount of the global population using the internet is here on the left side of the continent, or the world, excuse me, using it here. And so the amazing and wild realization about this is that it's not as worldwide as one might think. And the cool thing about that is we also have the benefit of seeing hellos pop up still. We have the benefits of doing things that are completely new, innovative, amazing, things that generations before only dreamed of in science fiction. So for example, if some of you like Instagram or blogging in any way, shape, or form, well, fun fact for you, 51% of bloggers are female, and 20% of those bloggers are under 20 years old. So folks like you, blogging, use the internet, sharing their thoughts, their feelings, their beautiful inspirational words. That is a lot of younger folks, which makes me sound very old to say, but it is true. A lot of the younger folks like you all are changing our culture just through using the internet. And so with that in mind, another thing to note, 2/3 of all web traffic is mobile, and that number is only going to go up. A lot of us have access to smartphones, and a lot of us, at least have access through our parents' phones. So it's kind of a wild thing to think about that even 20 years ago, let's say 30 years ago to be safe, 30 years ago, people did not have access to this type of easy to use technology in their pocket. That's kind of wild. But then how does this all work? Like, what exactly makes the internet function? The thing is, a lot of us don't actually think about, what connects everything together? How does that actually work? And to know how to use HTML and CSS, it's really helpful for us to actually understand a little bit about how the internet itself works. So essentially, just like people use a variety of languages to communicate, computers use a language to communicate, or several languages to communicate, really. The language computers use to talk over the internet, though, is called TCP/IP. And so in the diagram here, you can kind of see they're all sort of talking to each other, and it's little speech bubbles, your little mobile phone, your little desktop computer, your little laptop computer, all communicating with that language. They use a language called, what TCP/IP means is Transmission Control Protocol / Internet Protocol, which try saying that 5 times fast, but essentially it means that they can communicate over networks, wirelessly or wired. And a lot of us today are using wired networks specifically. So this communication in the diagram here, wired is being the full line and then wireless being the dotted lines. Either of those can work. So when you go and click that little, sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? My goodness, the network sign on your desktop and connect to the internet, that is essentially opening the door to talking to other computers and opening the door to talking to other computers through the web. And it gets bigger and bigger and scales up so quickly. The internet is essentially billions of those doors being opened and computers and servers communicating. So again, the beauty of this is that we can access each other so much easier than we could have before. Honestly, if the coronavirus, this whole ridiculous pandemic happened even, like I said, 30 years ago, well, we couldn't all see each other like we're seeing each other now. And that's really something I'm grateful for. Even in hard times, we have access to the best tools of all time. Computers talk to each other over networks, which, like we said, wired or wireless. But with so many computers, how did we identify each computer? How does the internet know who you are and who I am? Well, we have this thing called IP addresses. And IP addresses are essentially, well, let's talk about this one. I am pretty sure no one would know what this IP address links to unless I showed you. Essentially, this http://74.125.224.272/ equals Google. And so computers have kind of a different language than what we have. The way they communicate isn't necessarily through English and French. What they're using to understand someone or what someone is or what a website is just a series of numbers where we would enter google.com. So essentially, how this gets translated is we use a domain name system, or DNS. And so it's a naming system, for computers, services, and other resources connected to the internet or a private network. An IP address is an exclusive number on all information technology devices, which use the ability to communicate with each other on a computer network. Every website has a host name, like, for example, Google, and an IP address, that long series of numbers that I mentioned before. And let's use a metaphor to help explain that a little bit. So the host name, in this case, Google, is kind of like a house. And the IP address is kind of like the address attached to it. The mailing service can find that address because of the numbers and the specific information listed. So it's essentially a way to think of it like that. So again, excuse me, host name is the house. Oh my goodness, it's loading a little slowly. The host name is the house. The IP address is the address. Okay, is everyone logged into CodePen? Do you want to log in and get ready to go? So the address for that is CodePen, CodePen.io. Now, if any of you are having trouble logging in, just let us know. Again, we have the adults in the room who are here to help you get logged in. For those of you who are already logged in, isn't this a super cool looking website? Look at all these like icons and gradients. Totally, as a designer, makes me geek out. And feel free to kind of, oh, there we go, perfect. We got the URL in the chat if you're having trouble entering it. You can, if anyone's logged in already, feel free to take a second to explore. I want you to all be inspired and excited by the things you see. Look at that. Everything we're learning today can build this. Isn't that kind of wild? And it's only, there we are, HTML and CSS. So feel free to dig in a little bit, get a little inspired while others get set up. And if you have trouble or if you aren't logged in, just remember to hit the login button on the top right, enter your username and password, or you can log in with your social media account if your parent has you set up that way. And then hit logged in. And Amy mentions, oh, hello. Oh, okay, so Amy mentions to hit yes once you're logged in. Oh, look, another example, pure HTML and CSS. Everything we're learning today to build a king. How rad is that? Like, it's like making a digital drawing, but it's all written in code. It's very magical. And I'll show you exactly how we can do some of these types of things in a minute. Let's see. Ooh. Make sure we're not getting ahead of ourselves here. What are some other cool things I can find? Just some rings. Oh, this one's using a little bit more than HTML and CSS. Perfect. I really want to see, I want to see more pens just for a bit. I just am so excited to show you all these things. I remember back in my day, we didn't have a place to get inspired. Oh, look, it's Tom Nook from Animal Crossing. Have you played Animal Crossing yet? I'm raising my hand because I've played it too much. Very cool. And that's pure HTML and CSS too. Oh, look at that. A washing hands one. Again, HTML and CSS. How cute is that? Wow, look at that animation. I love looking at things like this because it helps us kind of see what's possible and get excited. Are we feeling comfortable Let's see. I'll give you all another 3 minutes to log in if you haven't, and then we'll move forward. And don't be afraid to ask for help if you need help. It looks like a lot of you are probably okay, but again, we're here to help. What else can we see in here? Emojis. That's cute. HTML and CSS again. We have our sort of cool, thoughtful, smart one, our little angry one, our surprised one, and our skeptical one. Kind of reminds me of Inside Out. Has anyone seen that? I love that movie. Yeah, that's a good one. Wow, look at all this cool stuff. And I promise we're going to get into it in just a minute. I just want to make sure everyone has enough time to log in. Another one. Look at that. That's so pretty. It's like a piece of art. Oh, and we have a visitor. Oh, hello. Hi, everyone. Want to say hello? Let's see. And if you're asking questions, make sure to ask in the whole group chat or ask a specific TA. So I'll be making sure to keep moving today, but the TAs, the adults, or rather the whole group will help you move through. Let's give it another minute and I'll see if we're ready. Oops. Well, there's an Iron Man one. Does anyone like Iron Man? Ooh, let's see. Oh, is this a keyboard? Rainbow swirl. Okay, I'm behind rainbows. And Danica just mentioned that the teaching assistants today, just so you know their names, they're Janel, Jamal, and Jackie. Rainbow swirl.
Janel, Jamal, and Jackie.
All right, the three
Marshmallow.
J's. Marshmallow? What are we looking at?
Yeah.
Marshmallow. I don't see a marshmallow.
There's a marshmallow if you go this way, I think.
Huh. Very cool. Well, I'm excited that you saw something you're excited about. I like marshmallows personally. Oh, look at that. That's beautiful. Wonder how they built that one. Oh, they've got some JavaScript in there. Let's see. I think we're about there. And my cat is, of course, being distracting. All right. So, oh, there's Pikachu. Nice. Awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and dig into the next part of our workshop. So you all can stay on CodePen. You can look around a little bit, but I'm going to talk a little bit about HTML and CSS now. So what are HTML and CSS? Well, HTML and CSS are the languages we use to build websites. So every website you've ever used uses HTML and CSS. Well, most of them do. So for example, if you go to twitter.com, HTML and CSS all over there. Any other websites that you're using on your computer or through a browser are going to be built using these languages. And essentially what these languages are is they're just documents. It's kind of like a Word document that everyone can see, except for much prettier in most cases. So essentially, really what they are is just a way to create advanced documents that we can share with everyone. And so what are HTML and CSS? What do they mean? Because they're both acronyms. HTML means hypertext markup language. Now you don't have to remember that, but that's essentially what it means. And what it does is it creates web page layouts. And we'll talk about the specifics of that and what that means when we try to code ourselves. But essentially it uses tags to tell the web browsers how text, images, and other kinds of content, should be arranged on the page. And so it's kind of like when you open your Word document and you have, and I assume kids these days are still using Word documents to write papers and such, but when you have your little title and it's about everything about Jaguars title, and then the few paragraphs that come below it, essentially HTML is kind of like that content. It really puts the structure of the page together. Now CSS, on the other hand, means cascading style sheets. Now these two languages are related and they often come together. And essentially what that means is CSS is changing the formatting of a web page. So the structure that you create with HTML, the CSS comes in and makes it look different, makes it behave differently. And so on this document example that I've given, Jaguars, everything about Jaguars is your title, and then a bunch of paragraphs below. Well, CSS would be the way to make that title blue or orange or yellow. Essentially, it's a way to kind of adjust the way that we interact and experience a website. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Now, at the bottom of this page, there's a link. And if you wouldn't all mind, you should be able to select it and open it. Now, if you aren't, I will put it in the chat now. Awesome. So we're back in CodePen, and you can see this hopefully, at least on my screen. If not, hopefully on your screen as well, but we should all have this open and are looking at it together. Now, you don't have to be looking at it on your screen. I would recommend, actually, if you have Zoom open, to adjust your window, as I am doing now, and make it part of the size of your screen. I'm going to drag Zoom over so you can see Zoom on my screen, and have Zoom be the other part of the screen and dragging that to be less wide. And that way you can see both what I'm showing you and what you can have open and are editing and play with. That would be my recommendation, just so you can all kind of keep track of both places. I'm going to move this back so we don't all have to look at each other a second time.
How do I get rid of this chat?
Sorry?
Never mind.
Oh, okay. I'm going to make mine full screen since I have two desktop, I have one screen over here and one screen over here, so I'll make this full screen so you can all see it. Now, we're back in CodePen. And what does that mean? So, right now, at the bottom, at the top of this screen, you have, yeah.
Can you just share the link in chat? I didn't see it show up yet.
Oh, you know what? I apologize. I accidentally, goodness gracious, my apologies. Let me do that. Or looks like Sarah Fields just got it. So perfect. Sarah just posted that in the chat. Thank you for following up and asking. Awesome. Give it 10 seconds. Awesome. Okay, so in CodePen, I don't know if you've all used CodePen before, but assuming that you haven't, let me talk a little bit about what's on your screen and what it means. Now on the top left side of your screen, or depending on, you have certain settings you can adjust where it's placed, but on this screen at the very least, you should have 3 columns. The first column is for HTML, which, reminder, means hypertext markup language and determines the page layout. In the second column, you should have CSS, which again means cascading style sheets, and that determines the style of the page. In the third column, you've got a JS. And today we're not going to talk about JS, so you are welcome to just minimize that or ignore it or whatever you want to do with it. That stands for JavaScript, by the way. And there are other workshops that will talk about them if you're interested. All right, so we've got our HTML and our CSS up. Now at the bottom of this page, you can see an example of how your page would look. Now what it's showing us right now is all the code on the left side put in as if it were in a page. So if this were in a normal page browser, I would just be seeing this. But since we're using it in a code editor site, we can see the code and the page all at once, which is super helpful. So right now what we're seeing, for example, and you can kind of see the code here, and we'll talk about what different parts of this code mean. You can see we have this thing at the top called an H1, and that includes inside of it HTML and CSS. And so within that, you can kind of see that title being translated into the page itself. So what's in that H1 tag? HTML and CSS. What if I wanted to edit that? Oh, and don't forget, if you have a question, put it to the group. It looks like ZTBell78 is not needs help with CodePen. If some TA can help them. Awesome. So what was I going to say? Oh, so let me show you exactly what's going to happen if I change the HTML and what happens to the page. What if I wanted to make this H1? We'll talk a bit about what an H1 is in a moment. What if I wanted to make that header below something other than HTML and CSS? What if I wanted to say, I love dogs and cats? Well, look at that. It changes it on the page as I'm editing. So let's see here, sorry. Going to make sure everyone is logged in. Timeout. Okay. So I changed that header, and it changed the header within the page itself. Now, what is a header? What exactly does that do? Everything that's marked with an H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6 is a header. And a header is essentially a way to mark the structure of your page. So we have our H1. Now that I've changed it, I love dogs and cats. But right below that, we have the H2. In this case, it says, what is HTML? Now that applied to the original header that we had. We can do the same thing with this that we did with the H1. I love dogs and cats. Well, the H1 is the most important one. The H2 fits within that. So the H2 should be relevant to the H1. So I love dogs and cats, but the cats are my favorite. Now we can see that the text I changed within those, what we call tags, has changed on the screen. So let's say that we wanted to do something else. We wanted to create something completely new here. So what we see here is that H1 with 2 brackets around it, those carets, and then one at the end with a bracket, a slash, and a bracket, a slash, and H1 brackets. One moment here, we've got something going on in the chat. All right. So what if we wanted to create something completely new? How does that work? Well, let's say we wanted to add a third layer of hierarchy here. Let me show you how that works. Now, for this circumstance, we have our first title, our second, our first header, our second header. Well, we can go further by creating our own. So for this circumstance, I'm going to start, let's see, excuse me one moment again. Okay, so let me just stop one moment because we have a few folks messaging me directly. And what I'd like to remind you, again, is to make sure that at the bottom right side, or excuse me, bottom left side of your chat, you have a, I'm actually gonna go ahead and drag it and show you. So you have a drop down that lets you select who you're talking to. And so when you have a question, sorry, I should have mentioned this at the beginning. You're not seeing my Zoom right now? Okay, goodness. Well, it's natural that we would have technical difficulties on a remote video. So let me make sure, how can I share this? Well, I will talk us through it, and I hope that that is enough for us at this moment. So in your chat window, you should have a big white block. And in that white block, at the bottom, you should have a drop down, and it's blue. Now, or bluish. So from that drop down, make sure you're selecting to chat with everyone, parentheses, in the meeting. And when you do that, you can say hello to all, just as I did. So just make sure you're doing that because I can't, I hope that the TAs can help you today. I will not be able to help you directly just so we can keep moving. And hello, see, there we go. All the hellos. Yeah, feel free to say hello again. This makes me happy. Hello to all. Awesome. Yeah, sorry for stopping us. I just want to make sure that everyone gets the help they need. And if you have a question, if you need help, put it in the chat that way, and one of the TAs will come and help you immediately. Awesome. Sup and peace as well. And it makes the TAs happy too if we can help you. If they can help you, excuse me. Okay, all right. Let's head back. You can all hopefully still see my screen as it was. So let's head back into the code because I know we kind of are going a little bit back and forth. So what we were doing, oh goodness, I refreshed the page. I have something, where did it go? Here we are, our edited code that includes, I love dogs and cats, but cats are my favorite. Now, let's say we want to create something new. Well, the logic of HTML essentially requires us to create everything within a tag. And a tag is, as I kind of mentioned, those little carrots in the content inside, those are tags. And tags indicate to the web what that content is and what it means. And so for our example, for this purpose, we can say, let's try something new. In this case, I'm going to do an H3, the third item within the header structure. We have an H1, H2, and let's make an H3. And it kind of follows the same pattern. H3, we start with our caret, H3, and then we close that tag. And we include what will show within the page within the tag. So the H3 will never show on the page itself, but we can say Dogs are great too, though. And it's going to show up in the page immediately. But we have to do one thing before we leave this. The most important thing, if you take nothing else away from today, the most important thing I can emphasize to you for HTML is that everything has to open and close, kind of like a book cover. Now, we can have it exist without the book cover, but the book cover kind of keeps it together and makes it make more sense. So in this case, we got our caret, and with the closing tag, we're going to use that / and H3 and close that. Now we can see some other things here that are pretty cool too, that we haven't really talked about yet. So we've got these things, these P tags. We've got some strong tags. We've got, oh, a lot of strong tags. And then we've got more H2s, headers, header 2s. And now let's talk about what some of these things actually mean. So the P is for paragraph. So HTML stands for strong, H, strong. So what we see here in the code, and I'm pointing, I'm trying to point with the cursor and my hand at the same time. What we see here in the code is essentially what we're seeing down here, just marked up. So HTML stands for strong, and now we see a bolded H because of that strong tag, hyper, strong T, text, strong M, markup, and strong L, language. So they're using a tag to create body, which P is what creates that body content. It stands for paragraph. So P for paragraph. And then they've used the strong tags to emphasize, I should say, to visually emphasize certain things. And that is the HTML, what the acronym for HTML is. So that's what they're using here. What else can we see on here? We've got some more P's, got another H2, as I mentioned, and then we have something else. OL, LI, and OL. We also have something called a div. So what is an OL? Well, an OL stands for organized list, and that OL tag contains tags within it. So you have an OL, and within the OL, you have LI. And LI stands for list item. So at the bottom of this page, you can see that there's the OL. You can't see the OL, but you can see two list items numbered for us. So every single website uses HTML and CSS for context. Every single website uses them, exclamation point. That's our first item. Web browsers like Chrome, Firefox, and Internet Explorer read HTML and CSS so that they know how to show the web page. That's our second item. So the OL creates a list for us, and the LI creates each item within that list. And we can also see something else. What is this little bugger here? The caret with the exclamation point and the dashes. Well, look at that. Well, we don't see anything on the page that correlates with that, but I wonder what it is. So what that does for you is it, as a coder, you can see something written in the code that isn't presented to someone that's accessing the page. It's kind of like the secret language of coders, the super awesome secret private way to communicate super secret information. So kind of interesting here though, but let's see what that third, if I grab the LI, or if I just delete this, what happens? Well, look at that. We've added a third bullet. So we remove the LI and, excuse me, not remove the LI, we remove those little dashes and those carets and everything at the outside. And now that now we have real live another list item, and that third list item is They're completely free to use, and you can now see it in the bottom part of your page that says they're completely free to use. Now, this is all really cool and you know, I mean, it's great and all, but it's kind of ugly, right? Like, the typeface or that font's kind of lame, and the colors are kind of weird. But the reason for that is because we're using pure HTML. Now, in the right side, the middle one, not the JS one, the CSS column, we have some code in here already. Now, this code is different than HTML. So the HTML code has to be written in its own way. And the CSS code has its own logic and reasoning. And essentially, what these two are going to do is communicate with each other. Well, rather, the CSS is going to communicate to the HTML. But right now, we're not using it. All this is lightly grayed out. Nothing's accessible for us. Well, let's see what happens when I remove this / and asterisk at the beginning and the end of the CSS. Well, look at that. We have activated the code that exists within there. So all of that content that we had before now is visually different. And so you can actually not just see the structure of the page, but you can see how it looks a little bit different. So now we have a background that's yellow. We have a header one. The header one we had before is a yellow, orangey yellow. And all the typefaces are what do we call, what is this typeface? Excuse me, font. What is this font? Typeface is a similar word with a slightly different meaning. This font, according to the CSS code we have here, is Arial. And something after that that says sans serif. Well, we don't have to necessarily digest too much what the Arial sans serif means, but essentially what the font that is shown is Arial. Now, you probably have used Arial before. I'm seeing some mention of Comic Sans in here. Now, I wonder if I can edit the CSS to change the typeface, the font that's shown within here. So can I say Comic Sans? No, I can't say that. What about, what typefaces can we use here? Let's see. Let's Google search. Now, another thing I really want to, oh, Calibri, that's a great one. Let's try that one. One thing I want to emphasize here, and if you were going to take two things away, as I mentioned, the first one would be that HTML code, the tags should open and close every time. The second thing I want to emphasize here today is that it's okay to Google. It's okay to look this up. At no point should anyone be about code all the time. The cool thing about technology is that it's always growing and it's always developing. So it's okay to Google search something every once in a while. I can't remember every font name that's available. The internet can tell me that. That's the amazing part of the internet. And this page is easily accessible. And it's telling me, oh goodness, all these things I can use. 5 font families, I don't care about that. Helvetica, Times, Courier, Verdana, all of these are fonts that we can use. Can we use Calibri? I'm going to close some of these other ones because we don't need that many. Okay, so we've removed Arial. Let's see if we can use Calibri. Well, it doesn't look like Calibri. Let's try another one. Now, we saw from that list, did I do something wrong? What did I do? Oh, I see. I see what I did. Did you all see what I just did? So the cool thing about code is that, first off, you should always feel welcome to reference other people's code. That's the amazing thing about the internet, is that not just information becomes accessible, but everybody's code becomes accessible. So in this original file, you can see that Arial, the font that was originally used for this entire page, was capitalized. And so when I was going in here and trying to add different fonts and it wasn't working, it was because I had them lowercase, Calibri. That didn't work, so let's try it uppercase. Okay, well that didn't work either, so we don't have Calibri, but we do have some other ones that we can use. Courier, which is kind of this old, if you've ever seen a typewriter, ancient technology typewriters, it's kind of like a typewriter font. We just changed it that way. CSS gives us the ability to control all of the elements of this page and how they look and how they behave. So what other things can we see in the CSS here? We've got our font family. That means the font we chose. The font size, and if you've edited a Word document, which most of you probably have, means the size of the font as it is. So what if right now it's at 14 pixels? What if I put in a wild number like 150? Let's see what happens. Oh gosh, we can't even fit, oh gosh, we can't even fit most of the words. We'd have to scroll forever and ever and ever to see that. But we can go up a little bit, right? We had it at 14 before. Let's go to 20. It's just a little bit bigger than what we had before. So font size controls, as the name implies, font size. Now, something else that I kind of want to emphasize here. Right now, when you're looking at the CSS, you can kind of see different groups. At the top of your CSS, you should see something called body, unless you've edited your CSS and you're like totally savvy with code on your own. What you should see is that body. And so body controls everything within the body. Or for another example, we have our H1. So the H1 is being referenced in CSS and in the HTML. Now, let's see, we have our H1 marked up in here as orange. What happens if I want to change that? Blue. It changes the blue, or excuse me, it changes the color of that first header to blue because only one thing on this page has that tag around it. What if I were to copy it, that well, we probably shouldn't copy an H1, but for the purposes of an example, let's say we wanted to just look at that H1 again, but with different text inside. So we've recreated the H1, we've just copied and pasted those tags and then edited what was inside them. And then now we have two things that are blue. Now, just so you all know, a good practice, you should only have one H1 tag on every single web page. Now that's just a best practice. We won't get into that today, but we did edit that H1 with the CSS, and the CSS directly communicated with the HTML. So that's kind of cool. What else do we want to do? Does anyone want to throw a suggestion in terms of what we want to change here? Any other ideas? Put it in the chat. Purple. Ooh, okay, let's do purple. I like purple. Okay. So we have, let's talk about making a completely new thing in HTML, or okay, purple and background. Okay, that's exciting. So let's make something completely new in CSS. Now, from our context here, we can see a little bit about how CSS works. Let's make the H2 styles in CSS. Now, based on what I see here, I can do it like this. H2 space, curly brackets. Now, curly brackets are a shift item. So you shift and grab those on your keyboard and enter them. And take a second if you needed to find that. So curly brackets are those funky little ones. They kind of look like parentheses, but they got that little dip at the top. It's like a little, I always loved curly brackets. I think they're pretty, but use those. And it's kind of like what we talked about with the HTML, right? With what we talked about with the HTML is we have that curly bracket, or excuse me, we have the opening, and then CodePen has already actually done a favor for me, and essentially added the closing to it. So that was easy. We've added the H2 and we've created a place where it can live safely. It's kind of wrapped up nice and neat with a little bow. And we wanted, the first recommendation we had was purple. So what we're gonna do is make all of the header 2s on this purple. And we're gonna use the context that we have from the first CSS header styles and try those here. So color, colon, purple. And then, again, learn, if anything you learn from, if you learn anything today, it's that code needs to open and close always. Well, not always, but most of the time. The logic is that if you have something open, you want to close it nice and neat. Now, in this case, we're going to be closing a colon with a semicolon. And let's take a look. We have our blue header 1, and now we have a purple header 2. Rad, right? But there's more to it than that. So we've been entering color names in here, but there's more colors than, like, what if I wanted to use like a really specific color? Like, I can't, there's no, you know, there's a lot of colors you can pull natively and put in here. But let's say I want a custom color. Ooh, bubblegum pink. Yes, let's do bubblegum pink. I love this idea. Let's do it this time, or aqua blue, also good recommendation. Let's say now we're gonna do the background. Now I'm gonna use a light pink here. And how I wanna do this is I'm going to show you a little bit about this, and we're going to go a little bit into another place. So just watch me for a minute. We're going to find a color, and I'm just going to Google color picker. And the first thing that comes up, bless Google, is a color picker. Now you've probably all used these before because again, you're digital natives, but in case you haven't, I'm going to walk through it. So at the top of the page, if I've Googled color picker, you have this little bar, and I can drag it and it will change the color. I can drag that little dot, or I can drag the dot that's within the box itself, and then the selected color is shown here. Now we want to use bubblegum pink, so I'm going to drag it over to here, and I'm going to make it light because this is a background color, and we don't want it to be too dark, or we can't read the text that's on the page. So we've got this sort of light pink. But what do we do with this color? How do we use it on the page? Well, there's a lot of ways we can do this, but I'm going to show you one that I use pretty regularly. Below the color picker, we have some options shown. We have hex, RGB, CMYK, HSV, and HSL. Now, all of these have different applications and different purposes. So what do those mean? Well, they all, like I said, they all mean, and excuse me if I get sidetracked, sometimes I see the chat pop up. They all mean different things, but for the purposes of this example, I'm gonna use the hex. And it's kind of magical, right? Back in Hogwarts, where you're gonna be using a hex code. So we're gonna grab that, and we're gonna copy it. Now I'm gonna move back to the tab that we were in before, not this one, the one we were editing code in. Now, we want to edit the background color. Now, in this case, based on context, I can see that we have this div tag at the top of our HTML. It's also all the way at the bottom of the HTML. So what that means is that this tag is wrapped around everything on this page. And so to edit that background color, I'm going to go reference the div in CSS. So we see the div in HTML, and in CSS, you can see we have div, curly bracket, background, lemon chiffon. That sounds like a tasty cake. You can kind of see that sort of yellowish color here. So, excuse me. So what if we used that hex code we copied and pasted it? There's our bubblegum pink right there, and applied to the whole thing. So that's pretty rad. What else did we get in here? We got aqua blue and teal and turquoise. I love the color parts of this too, which is why I'm a designer. Well, goodness. Where are we on time? Let me make sure that we're not running over on breaks. Does anyone need a bathroom break? Are we feeling okay? Does anyone need, I need a drink of water. So I'm gonna take a sip with my fancy straw. Ooh, we've got a hex code in here. All right, let me copy that hex code. Thank you, Janel. Forgive me if I pronounce anyone's name wrong. Okay, we got a new hex code, so let's apply it somewhere. Where else can we use things? Well, we've got some other types of HTML in here. What else can we use? We've got P for paragraph, strong, that creates a bold. We have an H3 as well. So we're going to use this hex code. And I want to apply it. We're using it a lot on headers. Let's do the paragraph. Let's try that. So how do we apply this to a paragraph? Now watch me in the CSS. We hit P, curly bracket, enter, and then we're going to follow what we've seen before, color, colon, and I'm going to enter that hex code. And, ooh, well, we can't really see it, but that's because we have a lot of colors going on. That kind of ties into something really interesting though. This aqua blue on top of the bubblegum pink. Have you ever used a web page that it's hard to read because the colors are weird, or the type, or the font is too small? Well, remember when you create this kind of content that you want to make it something that everyone can see and read. And so keep that in mind when you're editing HTML and CSS. Now, let's see here. We've got a surprise color. Okay, we're going to do one more color and then we're going to move forward. Let's apply this surprise color. Let's see, let's try that on the header 3. Color, paste, curly bracket, or excuse me, semicolon. Okay, so that surprise color was sort of a rouge, a crimson purpley color. Very pretty. I like it very much. I hope you've all been trying this on your own side too, because there's a lot that you can do that's custom on your own that would be easy to do. Now, let's say that we don't want a background color for a minute. Could we just delete this? Like the one that we had, that bubblegum pink? Now, that's nothing against bubblegum pink, but let me just show you what happens if I delete something in here. Well, that background color is gone. We still have our paragraph in here. It's just a little hard to read. But you can still, if you highlight it, you can see it's there. Well, very nice. What else? I think we're about ready for our next activity. But before we do, does anyone want to, let's do a 5-minute bathroom break, get some water, stretch, and let's do 5 minutes. So if you come back to us at 2:07 or wherever you are, it might be 3:07, it might be 1:07, it might be 4:07. So go ahead and take 5 minutes and do what you need to do. Or sit with me. Okay. So we did some cool work with this, but if you'd like to save, if you've been doing your own work and you'd like to save it and share it, I can show you how now. So I've edited this, but this is somebody else's code that they started with. So in CodePen, I think I can save this as my own. Let's see, I think I can. Let's find out. Just do this, gonna do this really quick in case there's some lag and folks coming in. And how do I do this? Settings. Well, let me put it this way. If you've been editing this code, don't close this window or tab at this time. Just save it and keep it open. I'm going to show you how to save and make your own code like this and save it in your own account. So don't close this, because if you do, it means that everything you just did will go away. And so we don't want to do that, but I can show you how to save it. So let's see if you know what, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to make it and save it now. So for me, since I don't want to leave this, I'm going to go to codepen.io. Oh, let's drag this away. Excuse me. Okay. Now we're back at CodePen. Whoa, that's a lot of favicons. We're back at CodePen, but I want to save this code as my own. So to do that, for me, I have this little thing on the top left. Now that says pen, and I'm going to select it. So I've selected it, and I have this completely blank page. So what I'm going to do to save this and keep it is to go to that tab that I didn't close, and I'm going to copy everything that's in each part, each column, and then paste it into the column in the new pen. So I'm going to Command C on that, or well, that's just a hotkey, but ignore me. Copy that. I'm going to go back to my own pen. I'm going to paste the HTML in there. And it shows the HTML. But it's not showing the CSS because I haven't grabbed that yet. So I'm going to go back to the original pen. Whoops, what just happened? I'm going to go back to the original pen. I'm going to grab all that CSS, copy it, and paste it. And that should save everything I've put together today. But not quite. A couple things left. For me, I'm going to change the title of this. In the top left-hand side of my screen, I'm going to say TechGirlz. Oh, hit that pencil icon. TechGirlz. What's today's date? It is the 25th. 3/25/20. Now you can call it whatever you want to call it, but just make sure when you have it created that you hit the save button with the cloud. And Helena, or Helena, depending on how you pronounce your name, let me show you in a moment how to add photos and images to your code. Okay, so hopefully you've saved your code. If not, definitely try to do so today. And if you're comfortable, save it and share it in the chat, as Amy had mentioned. So feel free to copy and paste that URL, as I'm doing now. And I'm going to go ahead and share it with everyone in the meeting. And there it is, my saved code. So with that in mind, I'm going to keep us moving, and I'm going to show you how to use photos and images in your code. So feel free, as I'm doing that, to share your code pens. So exciting. Awesome. Okay, so we talked about what HTML and CS are and what they do. And I think with that, like, we've all kind of seen a little bit, they communicate with each other a lot. And one doesn't necessarily need the other to exist, but they sure work a lot better together. So we're going to try something different. We're going to try doing something similar, but with a different set of code. So in the presentation, we have a link. I'm going to paste this. Oh, goodness. If you have the presentation open, you can grab it hopefully. Or it's lying to me. Oh. Well, I'm going to see what I can do here. I'm going to go here. I'm going to grab this code. I'm going to paste it into the chat for everyone. Now, I just shared with you all another CodePen link that links to this new activity that we're going to be doing. So go to your chat and select the most recent message from me, Anna, and click on that link. Now, in this exercise, I've got it open now, and you're welcome to all keep it open and look at it for a minute while I talk about it. But fun fact while you're opening that link, did you know that flamingos aren't born pink? Flamingos are made pink with their diet. So I guess they are what they eat, because they turn pink because they eat this sort of pink dye called, ooh, that's a long word, canthaxanthin, and it exists in brine shrimp and blue-green algae. So while you're opening that link, kind of cool fact about flamingos there. I didn't really know why they were pink, and then we had this slide, and I was like, why are they pink? Let's find out. So hopefully you've got your code, your HTML, and your CSS open, and this one looks a little different. So what you should be seeing on the CodePen link I shared with you all is another instance where we have HTML and CSS already placed together next to each other for us, and then we have our JS. We're not using that today, so we're just going to close that out. But we have code ready, and we have it ready to use. At the bottom, you should be seeing a flamingo picture, some pink flamingos, and some text on a dark gray color. And so, so we do see a photo here. So we're going to practice some of our chops. What did we learn in the last session? We learned how to add headers. We learned how to add paragraphs, how to add styles, and what we need to do to create code well. So opening and closing, and logic that kind of builds on itself. Just keep those things in mind, because we're going to do it now. Okay, so I want to take a second and let you all kind of, in the chat, what do you see on this page that you think kind of looks weird? Like, what looks wrong with this? Feel free to answer in the chat. We're seeing some funny code. We don't have a heading right now. We do, but like, it doesn't look like a heading. Any other things that we see? I know I can see one. It's really hard to read that text on that dark gray background. Okay, well, let's fix some of these things. The first thing I'm going to fix for you all, I can't help myself. I just really want to fix this. So you remember from our last exercise, we learned how to add an h1, a header 1 to the page. Well, I'm going to go ahead and create that now. So we have flamingos. Does flamingos seem like a good header for this page? I think so, because we can
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, h1, open that h1 tag, and as we learned, close it with only a slight change, that / and h1. So now we've got this awesome, oh, so much better. It's like a very clear header. Just had to do that first because it was bothering me. Now the second thing we're going to talk about, images. Oh, yes, very exciting. I mean, as a designer, images are so important on the web. So you're seeing this flamingo image. Well, what is this code here? So you can, hopefully you're seeing what I'm seeing. I'm going to separate that out just so we can kind of clearly see it from the rest of that HTML. So we've got something, a caret, img, src equals, and then a long link, and then alt equals flamingos. So let's break down what all that means. img, image, src, source. So image source equals URL. What if I were to grab this URL, now, first things first, image source equals, but we have a quotation mark at the beginning and at the end. So it's another instance where we've got something opening and something closing, like my little bunny ears here. But the quotation mark at the beginning and end. Now that's not a true URL. So if we grab that with the quotation mark and pasted it, well, we wouldn't actually get a web page. That logic is there for HTML. The true URL that we've grabbed here is within those quotation marks. So I'm going to copy and paste it into the browser, and voila, you see the photo that's being used there. So, okay, someone tell me an appropriate picture they'd like to use in this page. We're going to pretend that it doesn't have to be flamingos for a second. Give me a Pikachu or a taco cat. And you can put it in the chat. Sorry, I should have said that.
Taco cat.
Taco cat, okay, taco cat. Okay, so what does this mean? Now, in this case, this image is being pulled from the web. And so we can find another URL and use that just the same way that original link was used. Now I'm gonna just, for the purposes of example, I'm just going to Google taco cat, as I have, and select images. Oh my goodness, there's so many taco cats. So cute. I can't even handle it. Okay, which one's the cutest? Oh my goodness, I have to choose which one's the cutest. Let's go with this one because it's adorable. Now, for the purposes of example, I want to mention that you usually can't just grab images and put them as your own, but we're students, we're learning. It's okay to do that. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to open the link within a new tab in my case. And now you have the, oh, that's not the pure image. We have gone to a whole new site and we're learning about coronavirus again. Oh, we have so many cute animals. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna grab that one because that's even cuter. So I opened that image in a new tab. Now that means this URL is just this image. So if I copy that URL, the top of the browser, and I go back to my flamingos, and I paste that image in, what should be shown is the cat with the tiny taco. Oh my God, that cat looks so angry about that tiny taco. Why? Why is it so upset about the tiny taco? I love tiny things. Maybe he wants a bigger taco. Anyway, we've now added a new image. Now, of course, it's not related to flamingos. So we'd want to use an image that's related to what's actually on the page. But again, for the purposes of example, what I'm hoping to show you is that you can use any URL in this case that has an image within it. Mystery image. Oh, that could be dangerous. I recommend using those images within your code now. So what I would recommend is in the flamingos that you have open, start editing and replacing with your own images. So definitely go ahead and copy and paste that mystery image within the quotation marks of this image code. Yes, image code. But here's another thing though. So we've got the image source and it equals this URL, but we have this other thing called alt. Now, what is alt? Alt is a way for people who use the web who cannot see or cannot see well to know what is within an image. And an alt attribute is so important. I want to emphasize this because it's really, really, really good to do. And in this case, what happens is that it describes what's in the image to people who are using devices such as screen readers. So, and I'm happy to explain what a screen reader is if anyone's curious, but essentially what this does, if someone's using the page and they can't see, they're blind or they're visually impaired, they hear what's in that image. And that creates an equal opportunity to use the web. And that is so awesome and so important. We live in an amazing era where things are accessible and like super rad. But here's the thing. We've changed this image. It's no longer—
What's a screen reader?
let's talk about that for a second. A screen reader is essentially a tool that reads the entire page for someone. And so what happens is someone with screen reader technology, it's an application, will go to the web, go to a new page, and instead of seeing everything on the page, or at least in assistance to seeing things on the page, the screen reader in their headphones or out loud through the computer will read everything on that page out loud. And that way people who are blind, who are visually impaired, can use the web the way that the way that all of us use the web. So it's about creating equal opportunities for all people. And it's a super awesome way to do that. It's one little tag here. One attribute here. That being said, this attribute no longer describes what's in the image. So what's in this image? Well, we have a cat looking at a taco a little angrily. So let's describe this image as it is, because we want to help people. And it's also just a good practice. And I can explain more why at the end of the class if we have time. But what's in this image? Well, we can use "this is me" and we can use "what." But if you took a second and with me for a second, if you closed your eyes or covered your eyes and you thought, if someone just described something as "what" or "this is me," what would that mean to you? Well, it doesn't necessarily have meaning because it doesn't, without seeing that, they don't know. So as someone who is, my job is to help make sure that I'm describing this image in a way that makes sense to someone who may not be able to see it. So "this is me" or "what" is a super fun way to caption this image. But the way to describe it would be cat looking at taco angrily. And that actually provides the context of what's in that image to people who can't see it. But if we wanted to have a caption below it, we should. So let's do a caption real quick. I'm not going to do a caption. I'm just going to add some text below. Now, remember how we added text? P, and I'm going to add "what?" in quotation marks, because it's a quote. And I'm going to say "cat." And now I'm going to close that out. Key. And there it is. "What? Cat." So what else can we do with this? Okay, so we mentioned some of the things that are wrong with this. We had no header, and we've edited the image. And again, I encourage you to take a few moments while I'm going through this and edit this code on your own. So put your own image in there, add your own alt text in there. Ooh, how do we change the image size? Great question. So if I wanted to change the image size, let me make sure I have this in the right order, because I don't always change image sizes. So again, encourage you all, if you have a question like that. Now, feel free to ask us, but in the future, when you're coding on your own, you can Google it, and that's totally fine. So let's say HTML, how to change image size. All right, well, the first link looks good. So let's see. HTML images. Example. Let's see. Example. Image size, width, and height. If you have questions about the web, feel free to definitely recommend using w3schools.com. I use that all the time. So we have our image size, width, and height. And what they're recommending to us, we see this code, right? We have HTML source equals image, img, _girl.jpg, alt text, and then style. Now that works. We could also use this one. Width equals this number and height equals this number. I'm going to just grab that and I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go back to my code. And I'm going to add this at the end. So make sure you don't add this within the quotation mark, but you do add it within the bracket. So there we go. Now we can see that this image now has a 500 width, that's in pixels, and a 600 height within pixels. But because we changed the width and height and it's not proportional to the original image, what happens is that image gets stretched out because we forced it to do so. So I wonder, how do we stretch it proportionally? Let's see, does that link show us? Not seeing it. Well, oh, would you like the URL for the cat taco picture? Here, let me share it with you. Just referencing the chat here. Here you are, taco cat picture. Well, let's see here. Let's remove this. I don't want to edit the width and height like that. Now, before I forget, those numbers, as implied, that width is going to adjust the width, and the height, of course, makes it taller. So let's see, the image started out taller. So, we want to make that width actually shorter if we want it to be proportional. So let's try 100 for width. Oh, now that's that's really thin. Let's try 100 for width and 200 for height. And that scaled it down a little bit. It's not quite right still. Well, see, this is usually why I don't do it myself. I'm not sure, if, I can't remember how to scale it proportionally. Does any TA know how to scale that proportionally? Oh, you just typed in width and adjusted. Let's see that. So it's scaling now. Oops. Oh my goodness, I'm editing the code like crazy. So we could just edit the width and it would apply. Oh my goodness, what happened? Use percentages, interesting. So what happens if I use a percentage instead of a number? What if I said width equals 50%? Oh my goodness. That means it goes up a lot, or is it, I'm not sure. But, oops, I've edited. I'm getting a little frazzled here. Okay, let's try 100%. Oh goodness. So what happened here? That 100% width, it's going to 100% of our screen width. That's really big. So I guess it's the width is proportional. The height and width, if we use the percentage, is proportional to the page that it's in and not to the original image.
That's a cute cat.
Isn't
Real
it?
cute cat. Yeah.
I love it. Let's go back down to 100 and not include pixel. Let's do 300 so it's not too big. Oh my goodness, I hit enter. And there we go. So it's scaled down a little bit. Now I recommend if you have more questions about image scaling, again, Google it. Find out what the internet knows, because the internet is an endless plethora of knowledge. So other things that are, let's do 1,000. Well, that's a good thought. Let me show you what happens at 1,000. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. At 1,000,
No, your whole background will be that cat.
It sure will be. Now we're getting a very pixelated cat. I can't even see the cat anymore. Where's the taco? It's not even really a taco cat anymore. Oh, I can't even handle this much. Oh, it's overwhelming. Let's go back. Ooh, I'm gonna stick at 250.
You're
Now,
just looking at the cat's fur.
yeah, all you can see is the cat's fur. It's way too big. I don't think anybody could see that unless they're a giant or they have the biggest computer in the world. I don't think anyone could see that. So let's stick with 250. Now let's go through the rest of this page before I get ahead of myself and talk through some of the other things that exist here. Okay, so we have some CSS on the side here. we have body and div. Now, we noticed a couple of things earlier that needed to be changed. Now, the first thing that we noticed was the header. We had talked a little bit about the image. The third thing that came up was the background color. So another thing for people who need a little help with the web or use the web differently than you might be using the web personally, people sometimes need to, a lot of people really, need to make sure that they can read that text by making sure the background color and the foreground color, or really the font color, have enough contrast so that it's actually legible. And that dark gray and that dark black color, well, I can't read them that well. So let's see what we can do to fix that. Now, first off, we have the background color in the body this time. So let's choose a different color. I'm going to grab, in our color picker again, I want to grab something kind of nice and airy and light. Let's do this blue.
Do light yellow.
Light yellow? Okay. We're going to grab that light yellow. Let's do a little bit more yellow. There we go.
Let's do a peachy color.
Let's start with the yellow, because we can't have two colors at once. But again, if you have colors that you want to change, do it on your own too. Okay, got a light yellow. So we fixed that color background in the body CSS by adding a new hex code to the background. And instead of having it being dark gray, it's now sort of a light yellow, or any color that any of you want to use. Do the same in the code that you have open in your own Flamingo tab. So if you want to use that peach color, use the peach color. Definitely try it out. So now we fixed the background color. That's great. What other things can we do? Well, all of this text is in one big block. And what that essentially means is it's kind of hard to read. Like, it doesn't all necessarily go together. And you can kind of see in the HTML that it's not supposed to. So how do we break that up? Let me show you. So see that P that we used earlier? We're going to use that again. But we're going to use it as a way to break up different paragraphs. So we're going to add a P at the beginning of this paragraph with flamingos. And based on what I'm seeing in here, I can actually probably figure out what they meant to have the paragraph break just by what's in there. So we add the P to the front of the paragraph, the P tag, excuse me, and the end of the P tag to the end of the paragraph. And what we see is that it creates that space between paragraphs that we want. So it's easier to read and the content kind of goes where it's supposed to. So we can do that again with the next paragraph. Opening tag for P. Now I can kind of see the end of that paragraph, closing tag for P. Perfect, we have a second paragraph. Don't know where that accent came from. Do it again, P and P. Whoops, not a question mark. Okay, so we've got 3 great paragraphs. Now, based on what content's in here, I can tell there's something else happening. Fast facts, all capitalized. What does that mean? Like, well, we know what it means, but it kind of looks like it's supposed to be a header. It's supposed to be something that comes above and is bigger and has more importance placed on it. So what do we do with that? Well, we know headers. We know how headers work now. And we've applied the H1 to flamingos, which this page and the content is still about flamingos, even though we have a taco cat in here. So we have an H1. What can we use next? The next thing we're going to use is, if you remember, H2. So open that bracket, open the caret or the bracket, H2, and then close it, fast facts, and after the end of fast facts, H2. Now you can see in the chat that Jackie and Jamal are putting some other examples or putting in instances of other things you can use for headers and how you can add P tags. So with the H2 that we've applied here, you can see now that FastFacts has the emphasis that you want it to have. And with the content below that, well, that doesn't look like a paragraph to me. Now, to me, that looks like a list. Does anyone remember what we did before or what we saw before with lists? This one's a hard question because we skimmed over it. OL, very nice. Yes, OL. We have something called OL, which is organized list. So the organized list, as I mentioned, you're going to want to open that up like we do with everything, and we're going to hit OL and close it. And then at the end, let's separate that. We're going to add the OL at the end of that. Well, we've added the OL, but it doesn't have a list within it. Does anyone remember how we create the list within the OL? LI, very nice. Yes, so we have OL. We're going to put this on a new line so that I can easily read it within the HTML. The first item, a flamingo's color it varies depending on its diet, kind of like what we talked about. So what we're going to do is add the LI list item, close that, and then close the complete tag.
Are what you eat.
You are what you eat. So LI, a flamingo's color varies depending on its diet. That's one item. And then we're going to close it out with the LI with the forward slash. And what we see now is the first item with a number 1 in front of it. And so we're gonna do the same to all the items. So I'm gonna go ahead, LI forward slash LI. We're gonna do that for every single list item. Fast facts about flamingos is pretty cool. And then, whoops, I accidentally did the closing at the beginning. Awesome. So now we have 4 perfect list items of fast facts. But let me ask something. Does a list numbered like this make sense in the context of our fast facts? Is it really in order of 1, 2, 3, or 4, or is it more of a bullet list? Well, there are other kinds of lists that we can use. So the OL is a great example because it organizes every LI tag within it in a numbered sequential order. And yes, another one, yes, Anaya, excuse me if I pronounce any names wrong, I am terrible with names. But so we found that oh, excuse me, ugh, let me take a breath. Okay, we found that OL makes an organized list, but what UL stands for is an unorganized list, which isn't unorganized, but it doesn't make everything sequential. So now, instead of having a number or a series of numbers, we've got bullet points. So it kind of makes sense for what we want to have here. So now we've got our every paragraph broken up. We've got, even though it says flamingos, we've got taco cap, but we can have flamingos back if we want in terms of image. Now, we also have someone who mentioned the strong tag. So I'm going to add that to that caption we had, right, with cat, the cat caption. I'm going to go back up to that P. Now, you don't have to do this with me, but I'm just going to do it for funsies. I'm going to do strong, which is going to bold this text for me. And I'm going to put that within the paragraph, strong. And now that what cat caption is all bolded. We have one last thing on this page that we need to fix. And we're getting some comments in here. Awesome. So the last thing we have on here, information from National Geographic Kids. That's a URL. But the thing is, that URL, we can't select it. And that's not what we want, right? So when you go to a web page and you see a URL like this, we are trained to select it. But we have, the people who code that have to make that link selectable. So how do we do that? Well, this one's a little tricky because it's not something that it necessarily is, you know, abbreviation. It's kind of a different set of code. But let's set up that logic and figure out how to add a link. So we can see the URL after kids starts with HTTPS and ends with ZQ. And so at the beginning of that, I'm going to show you the code and make sure, catch me if I'm wrong on this, anybody, but let me show you the code to create a link that is selectable. Open that bracket, A equals, href equals, open quotation, close quotation, and close. Nope, I did it wrong. That has been known to happen. Well, that's not wrong. The reason excuse me, I don't remember everything off the top of my head, so I'm gonna Google it. Link text. And again, I want you to feel comfortable Googling this. I'm not coding every day, so I'm gonna forget stuff like this sometimes. So I coded HTML links, and it's given me some examples. Again, we're on W3 schools, and I'm just gonna copy that. But what it's showing here, I'm gonna show you how to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put that aside for a moment, and I'm gonna paste the text that I got from W3 schools. A href equals quotation mark URL close link text, and then close tag. So this is, again, it's a little bit more complicated because there's a little bit more going on here than it might normally be. But let me show you how it kind of breaks down. I'm going to grab that link text from what I kind of messed up on that tag and just grab it. I'm going to delete what I had there. Now that URL, I'm going to place it here where it specifies and just paste it. Now, we have our link back. I fixed it, huzzah! But we have our link, but we also have link text. So what's happening is a href equals includes the URL itself. Now what's happening after that is the text. So now you can see that the link looks selectable, and you can see that we have this wording down below, link text. So if I selected this, I'm going to open it in a new window so we don't lose it. If I select this, we go to the URL that we specified, so we fixed it. Nice, so the URL totally works. You could add any URL there that you want. So, let's see. I'm gonna do something kind of wild here. I'm gonna grab that URL for the image link, copy it. Remember to paste it within the quotations here, paste it, and it's gonna change that link text. So if I select the link, now we open that image that we had before. So any URL can be used in these circumstances if you'd like it to be. But is link text helpful for us here? No, I think we should use something else. See taco, or learn more. Let's do learn more. I'm actually gonna fix that code because I don't want to link to Taco Cat twice. So I've just undid everything I just did. And then I hit learn more. That's much more helpful, right? Information from National Geographic Kids, learn more. Let's see here. So we could also do something else. We could do something kind of wild here too. I could grab that text information from National Geographic Kids, cut it out or copy it and paste it in here. So now that whole thing becomes the link. So perfect. Now, have I forgotten anything? Let's find out. We've created our headers. We've made a link. We've missed one thing. We need to add a div to wrap the whole page in. So we're going to start that. Now, we want to use divs in certain circumstances. And a div essentially can do any, like if you wrap a whole page in something, it will apply to the whole page. But a div is something that you can customize. So how do we do that? In this case, what happens is the code, the HTML knows there's a div there, but nothing's going to happen unless we edit that div in the CSS. So I'm going to add that div at the very beginning of all of my HTML. And I'm going to close it at the very end. Now, I know I've been talking a lot, but I have to show you all one thing because it's so helpful. What happens with code is that there's all these parents and then all these children that live within them. So for this example, we just wrapped all of these items, all these elements in the page with a div. So let's say, we could also use body in that case, but let's say the top item here is div. Everything that lives within that, everything that's wrapped up in that is now the child of that item. And so that's really important to remember when you're coding because you want to make sure that everything is relational, right? So when you create a div and you wrap it around the page, you don't want to add a header after that div closes, or that header will not fit within everything that is changing. Now you can add a header after that, but it just depends on what you're trying to do. So, and remember, and keep it kind of in the back of your mind, that there are parents items and there are items that live within them. And you can kind of see how, you can see that within the code. So you've got div, h1, and the div is the parent to everything else inside. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm going to close that. Awesome. So we've added a div as the instructions have. We've adjusted the image as the instructions included. Now, we haven't edited any of the CSS, so we're going to go through that really quickly here, but a lot of this should be review. So there were CSS things that we want to try out. Change header font. And let's remember how to do that real quick. So again, in the CSS, we say H1. Now we're only editing one header of this page. As I'm editing the CSS, it's kind of breaking some stuff on the page. And we're going to say font dash family comic, nope, Courier, and then close it. So that changes the header. Now, I don't want to take away too much time from everything else that we want to do today. And we have another 30 minutes. So I want to give you all a chance to take a break and then go ahead. We're going to go ahead and start working on our own code individually. Now, that doesn't mean that, let me actually work through this thought. Let's take another 5-minute break and then we'll work to figure out the next steps on how to work through our own code, okay? We're giving everyone the option to stay for another 30 if they'd like and work with us on some custom code. It is optional, but we are going to wrap. But before you go, first off, I want to say thank you so much for coming. I know being cooped up at home is hard. I appreciate everyone being so awesome and so respectful. Thank you for being here. We're so excited about it. And before you go, please do us a favor because this is one of the first virtual workshops we've ever offered. We would love it if you filled out the survey and help us become even better as we grow into a virtual space and support you all with education and learning. Again, I super appreciate it. I really enjoyed working with you today. And I know I've talked a lot, but I'm happy to see your faces. It brings me so much joy. So thank you. And anyone who wants to stay on, please do so. We'll just give it a couple minutes and we'll figure out what's next. So with those of you staying on, we'll have an activity for you for the next 30 minutes. We'll break you out and get that working ahead. So if you're excited about coding, stick with us for another 30. You could also go if you are excited about coding and need a break and want to do something else, that's totally cool. So thank you, everybody. The name of this event, this is TechGirlz Tech Box, tech shops in a box, but TechGirlz Learning Introduction to HTML and CSS. And if you'd like to do more, we're gonna have more workshops coming up. I personally teach other things like web design, app design, things like that. So if you'd like to join us, just let your parents know and we'll find another event for you all. There's some really cool stuff that we have, so we'd love to have you again. All right, so I'll give it a couple minutes. Folks who stay, feel free to stay. Folks who want to go, feel free to go. But stay safe, wash your hands, be nice to your parents.
Yes.
Oh, and look at that. Sarah just shared out upcoming events. So if you're interested, definitely in the chat, select that link, open it up, and take a look at what's coming. We're also planning on doing more. So what's on that list, there'll probably more added to it because we want to make sure that you all have fun and, you know, stay busy. It's hard being at home, except for if you have 2 cats like me. It's pretty rad if you have 2 cats. All right. I'll give it another minute here. Thank you, and thank you all for your thanks. That really means a lot to me. I appreciate that very much. Oh, more thank yous. Well, thank you. Oh, more thank yous. Oh my goodness, I'm very flattered. Thank you, everyone. That makes my day. More thank yous. I'm just gonna save this for my happiness board, which is, you cannot see it, but on the right side, I have an inspiration and vision board on my right side. Thank you all the many thanks. All right, we'll give it one more minute and then we'll get started with the next thing. Ashton, if you want to stick around, we can help you with that. Bye, Unicorn. I don't know if that's your real name, but if it is, that's a cool name. It's Leia. Well, both are, I mean, Unicorn's a cool name, but Leia, I think, makes more sense. That's fair. I might not choose the name Unicorn if I had a kid or a daughter, but to each their own. But nice to meet you, Leia. Okay, folks, it's 3:04. So if you're here, I assume you want to stick around for a couple minutes. Well, welcome to the after party of HTML and CSS workshop. Okay, so for those of you that are still here, we're gonna do something else. And it's pretty related to what we were just doing. But what's gonna happen is, now I don't know how many people are in here. So Amy, let me know if you wanna break us out into different rooms. I'll let everyone know.
Yes, so I have 3 rooms since we have 3 TAs here, and I'm breaking everybody out kind of evenly across the rooms. Anna, I have reserved you to pop you in and out of the room, so we'll discuss that once everybody's broken out. So without further ado, if you're ready for me to do that now, I can go ahead and send everybody to their room.
All right, everyone, you're going to go to rooms, but not like in a bad way.
Not in a bad
good way.
All right, doing it now. Welcome back.
Yay, we're back.
Okay.
All right. So I figured, if anything came up that you wanted to discuss, that came up in the individual rooms that you might want to discuss, or if you have any closing words, Anna?
Yeah, I think some of the things I saw was, first off, I saw some folks, we of course had some technical difficulties as anticipated with a remote virtual workshop, but I saw us working around that pretty well and really appreciated you all sharing your code pens with us. Saw some great writing, copywriting in there. I saw, I was really amazed with some of the stuff that Jamal was showing the group. So things like you can use videos and sound bites. The web is infinite. There's so many things that we didn't even get to show you all today. And so what I'd really encourage everyone to do is look more around in CodePen and find some cool things and hack at the code a little bit and, try it out, play with it. Like, code is not permanent. You're not getting graded on it. Like, play around when you have some free time. And find some cool stuff there. Like, that would be what I would say. You all done so amazingly today. I was so impressed. You're all going to be amazing coders, and you already are. Ooh, Hermione Granger pen. We just got one of those in the chat.
Nice.
Well, now it's actually a Stranger Things pen.
A strange. Oh, nice.
I love it.
I just want to take a moment to thank everyone. Anna, you are amazing, and we really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you to our TAs. Jamal, thank you. Janelle, thank you so much. And Jackie, you guys are all just so great, and we appreciate your time here. As Anna said, keep playing. This is so fun. I love playing around with HTML and CSS. There's so much that you can do. Did you want to pull up at, that code pen, and that we'll go out with that?
Sure, I'll show it.
Okay.
Oops, what did I just do?
Let's end on some technical difficulties. That would be true.
Such is the nature of this world. You can all see my screen?
Oh, yay.
Yep. How fun is that? We've got Mike Wheeler. He's a bit small, but he's young to grow. We have him at 20%, but we have this awesome hot pink background. Love that. And we've done that with a hex code. Well done. Oh, and the alt text is so well done. I'm so excited about that alt text on the image. Mike Wheeler looking confused. Perfectly done. When Mike's best friend, in the paragraph we see, when Mike's best friend, Will Byers, mysteriously disappeared, his friends try to solve the mystery. Along the way, now we didn't get to finish. It looks like we had some time to write, but we didn't get to write a lot. But well summarized, well done. And I want to see Mike a little bit closer. I'm going to update the size just so I can see him. He does look confused. I would agree with this alt text. I think it's well done. Fantastic. Way to kick butt. I said butt.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Bye.
Everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.